Can speak 9 languages, the young black girl declared with pride. The millionaire chuckled, but soon his grin froze. Rick Sullivan's laugh rang out, sharp and metallic, just as the 12-year-old lifted her chin and stated firmly, "I speak 9 languages fluently." The sound of his laughter echoed through the black marble-covered office on the 52nd floor of Sullivan Tech headquarters, gazing over Manhattan's skyline that shimmered like a field of stars. Rick slightly raised his wrist so the "Can speak 9 languages," the young black girl declared with pride. The millionaire chuckled, but soon his grin froze. Rick Sullivan's laugh rang out, sharp and metallic, just as the 12-year-old lifted her chin and stated firmly, "I speak 9 languages fluently." The sound of his laughter echoed through the black marble-covered office on the 52nd floor of Sullivan Tech headquarters, gazing over Manhattan's skyline that shimmered like a field of stars. Rick slightly raised his wrist so the Lucia Johnson, a slim black girl carrying a worn but tidy school backpack, her shoes polished to a perfect shine. Lucia's eyes lingered around the office, measuring the place her mother had worked in for 8 years. Yet was never permitted to truly see. Rick prowled around them like a predator circling prey. "Carmen," he sneered, "8 years here, isn't it? What's your education level?" "I finished high school," she answered quietly. "Only high school?" Rick let out a cutting laugh, his tone filled with mockery. Glancing at Lucia, he added with a sly grin, "And here's the little colored girl who thinks she can dream big. But this isn't a place for people with your skin tone to dream, you know." The words sounded casual, yet each carried a hidden blade. Carmen lowered her head, having survived years by shrinking herself, aware that every brick of this tower soaked up muffled sighs of workers like her. But today, her daughter stood beside her. Shame didn't flow quietly anymore. It bristled into thorns. Rick fanned out a bundle of yellowed pages. "Let's have some fun. An ancient manuscript I just won at Sabe's. 5 top translators in the city gave up on it. They called it a linguistic maze. Classical Chinese, Arabic, Sanskrit, ancient Hebrew, Persian, medieval Latin. Each section in a different tongue. Hey, little girl, guess what it says?" Lucia looked down. The script meandered like a river, splitting into countless streams. She didn't rush. Rick's eyes glinted. He turned back to Carmen. "You scrub toilets for people smarter than you. Your daughter will end up the same. Intelligence is inherited, you see. And then, twisting the knife deeper, and with her skin, climbing these stairs is even harder." Lucia lifted her gaze. Her eyes weren't angry, just steady. "You said the translators couldn't read it," she answered calmly. "Can you?" "I'm a businessman, not a translator." "Then you can't read it either. Yet you mock others for not being able to." She paused a beat, her voice soft but firm. "Money isn't proof of intelligence." Silence. The hum of the air conditioning grew taut like a wire. Rick's face flushed. He snapped back, defensive. "Do public schools teach you to talk back like that? A poor black kid claiming she can read what white PhDs couldn't. Stop deluding yourself." Lucia didn't look away. "I speak 9 languages," she said as if stating a simple fact. "If you want, I'll try." Rick raised a brow. Carmen's breath caught. She knew her daughter was studious, but 9 languages was another universe. Rick crossed his arms. "List them." Lucia ticked them off on her fingers. Spanish native, English advanced, Mandarin basic, Arabic conversational, French intermediate, Portuguese, fluent, Italian, basic, German, conversational, Russian, basic. Each name pronounced perfectly, her tone crisp as nails driven home. Rick laughed louder. The sound forced to cover a crack in his certainty. "Languages sounds like clickbait. Proof." Lucia didn't flinch. "The New York Public Library offers free language classes after school. Mr. Ahmed teaches Arabic on Thursdays. He was a literature professor in Damascus. Now he drives a taxi. Mrs. Wong teaches Mandarin on Tuesdays. Once head of a department in Beijing. Ms. Maria Rossi teaches Italian on Saturdays. She cleans houses by day, volunteers at night. They're not rich, but they're rich in knowledge. I studied through books, apps, people. Anyone can learn if given respect and opportunity. Carmen's grip on the cart tightened, then eased. For the first time, she saw her daughter's path not as a shadowed alley, but as a road paved with persistence and community. Rick glanced at the manuscript, his mocking grin faltering, as though someone had tapped a crack in his glass confidence. Go on, then. His voice was quieter, chin flicking. Toward the pages. Lucia drew a deep breath. She laid her warm palms on the brittle paper and began to read. The air shifted. Classical Chinese fell from her lips in sharp luminous strokes. Then ancient Arabic flowing, melodic, curling like a carpet's pattern. Sanskrit followed, syllables heavy with seed-like weight. Ancient Hebrew, Persian, medieval Latin. Each tongue distinct, yet the meaning was seamlessly like a river coursing through many lands. Rick's jaw dropped, then snapped shut like a fish lifted from cold water. His office had never witnessed power manifest like this. Not the whip of wealth, but the wings of knowledge. Carmen's hand rose to her chest, eyes brimming. Her daughter, the child who once did homework under a flickering bulb, was now speaking to the world from heights Carmen had never dared to imagine. Lucia looked up, her voice still steady. Shall I translate the meaning for you? Rick couldn't argue anymore. A single yes slipped out, not from his ego, but from a part of him long buried. The manuscript speaks of the nature of wisdom and wealth. Wisdom isn't found in gilded palaces, but in a humble heart. True wealth isn't counted in money, but in the ability to see dignity in every person. True power doesn't humiliate. It lifts others up. She stopped a moment. The words weren't loud, but they struck exactly where Rick had hidden his mirror. All these years. For an instant, he wanted to retort. With jargon, charts, numbers. But suddenly those things shrank to ants scurrying in circles. Before him stood a black girl who spoke 9 languages, read 6 ancient scripts, and didn't flinch at power. And he, a man who had bought what he didn't need just to hear money ring, felt empty. I am sorry, Rick muttered, startled by his own voice. The 3 words fell like lead on marble. Carmen looked up. In 8 years, no one on the 52nd floor had ever said sorry. To her. But Lucia only shook her head slightly. Words aren't enough. Actions matter. She met Rick's gaze. If you truly want to change, I'll set the condition, but that comes after I finish translating. And so on the 52nd floor of Manhattan, the opening strike of a rich man was overturned by the knowledge of a child. The rules of the game had shifted. The one in control, at least in this room, was no longer the man behind the stone desk, but the girl standing by the manuscript, her hands steady. Lucia translated each layer of meaning unhurried as if unlocking a chest with 3 locks. The first layer, she said, is instruction. Whoever thinks they are above others because of money is the poorest of all, for they've lost the ability to see light in others. Whoever uses power to belittle others is weak, for they need others to shrink just to stand tall. Rick pressed his hand on the edge of the stone desk. His fingers stiffened. The cold surface no longer gave him the safety it once had. A familiar voice in his head urged, argue, push back, twist the logic. But here, logic was no longer something he could buy. It was truth resounding through many tongues. The second layer, Lucia continued, is metaphor. The text uses a river to describe language. Water changes name and color as it flows through each land, yet it remains water. People change skin color, jobs, bank accounts, yet they remain human. Their dignity does not change. She stopped and looked straight at Rick as she said dignity. Carmen drew a sharp breath. She knew these truths in her bones. Being called the wrong name, being ordered to work faster than a machine, being seen as a tool. But today, hearing her daughter say, dignity, she felt a door open in her chest, a door she had kept locked for years just to keep going. The third layer, Lucia placed her hand on the final page, is choice. When the powerful realize they have been blind to the wisdom around them, that is the moment they begin to awaken or condemn themselves. Rick swallowed hard. The word condemn fell like a stone into a deep well. He looked around. The expensive paintings, the chandelier, the glass walls, all suddenly resembled a collection of golden handcuffs. He turned toward Carmen. For the first time, he saw not the uniform, but the face of a mother who had stood through countless weary nights. I was wrong, Rick admitted. But Lucia gently cut in. I have 3 conditions. If you truly learn today's lesson, fulfilling them will make your apology real. Rick nodded, accepting the new rule. Power was not in shouting, but in submitting to moral discipline. 1. Lucia raised a finger. You apologize to my mother, not just for today, but for 8 years of treating her like she was invisible. Say her full name. Carmen Johnson. Look her in the eyes when you do. Rick turned, facing Carmen. Carmen Johnson, he said slowly. I'm sorry for not seeing you as a person. I'm sorry for humiliating you in front of your daughter. I'm sorry for never once asking about your life. His voice broke slightly on the word person. Carmen stood tall. Not to forgive immediately, but to acknowledge this moment as real. The man who once didn't know her name was now learning to say it right. 2. Lucia continued, you use your power the right way. Scholarships for students from working families, respect for janitors, drivers, cleaners. Real policies, not charity. And 3, her gaze sharpened, you change the culture of this building. No more sneers at uniforms, no more silence when cruelty walks the halls. Power must lift, not crush. The air shifted, Rick finally understood.